Hey, guess what? It's time to update the We're Back list. Good morning, it's Uncle Lou. That's right, it is me, Uncle Lou, live on LouTube for you. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. Also, in addition to that as well, make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you're not already. I post pointless, barely watchable videos just like this one almost every single day of the year. We love college football around here. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, become a part of the community. You'll be glad you did. So brief overview if you're new to the We're Back list or what the We're Back list is. There's a couple of qualifications you have to meet to be on the We're Back list. In general, what the We're Back list is fan bases who every single offseason talk about, we're back. This is the year. We're back again. And then the season comes around, and of course, they're never back. And it operates on basically a 10-year cycle. In other words, you have to have not really won anything for around 10 years. I think we've made some exceptions to that rule in the past for some teams, but so what we're looking for is a conference championship, obviously a national championship, a playoff win. Those are the things that would get you off of the We're Back list. You'd officially be back at that point if you ever got that good. In fact, shout out to Notre Dame. Notre Dame has been on the Uncle Lou We're Back list for years, and of course they did play themselves off of the We're Back list last year by actually winning not one, but multiple playoff games. So they're off the list. As a reminder to the first We're Back list we did for this season, because I did one in February. So this is only the second one we're doing for 2025. Here's what we did in February for the We're Back list. There it is. You can see there were 6 teams on there. I had Miami and Tennessee tied for first. Obviously, neither one of those teams has won anything in at least a decade, so they qualify there. And if you spent any amount of time on the internet at all, then you already know you see Miami and Tennessee fans everywhere claiming that they're back. Constantly, all the time. So I had Miami and Tennessee tied for first on the We're Back list back in February. I had Texas A&M at second. You really have to Google to figure out the last time they won anything of significance. They haven't won a conference championship in forever. They've never made the college football playoff. They haven't won a national championship since 1939. And they're not a service academy. And for some reason, they get mad when you tell them that. And honestly, that's the main reason they're on here, is to give me a reason every time to remind the Texas A&M people that they're not a service academy. No reason for that to make you mad, but for some reason it does. Had Auburn next on the list. They did win the SEC in 2013. Is that right? In fact, I think they played in the national championship game, losing to the Jameis Winston Florida State team, but they haven't won anything since then. No SEC championships and no playoff wins. In fact, they've never even made the playoffs. And then Nebraska and Florida, we had pulling up the rear there of the We're Back list. Nebraska did finally make a bowl game last year for the first time in forever. So did Florida. And actually won it too, didn't they? Yeah, finished 8-5. 8-5, a remarkable season lately for Florida. I mean, you're talking about one for the history books. They've been so bad, and Nebraska's been completely irrelevant. I think that was the first bowl game they made in about a decade. So anyway, that's what the We're Back list looked like in February. And now, how the order is determined is which teams I think are closest to actually being back. And again, defining back for the purposes of this series of videos that we do year round, back would mean winning your conference or winning a playoff game, or of course a national title. But in order to win a national title, you would have to have checked off at least one of those previous boxes, the playoff win or the conference championship. You can't win a national title without winning multiple playoff games. So back in February, I had Miami and Tennessee as being the closest to actually being back, followed by A&M and then Auburn, and then pulling up the rear was Nebraska and Florida. All right, here's the updated list for May. We've seen spring practice now. The portal window is closed. There are still some players being added that were already in the portal, but generally speaking, we know what these rosters are going to look like for 2025. Had a lot of changes go on, most notably at Tennessee. But let's get into it. We'll start at the top. I've now got Miami on the top of this list by themselves. Miami is number 1 on the Uncle Lou We're Back list for May 2025, heading into the 2025 season. They went 10-2 last year, 10-3 after losing a bowl game. And really should have made the playoffs last year. Honestly, it was one of the best offenses, maybe the best offense that Miami has ever had, led by Cam Ward, Xavier Strepo, off to the NFL. Both of those guys are. Their defense was just absolutely horrific, and it just let them down in critical losses to Georgia Tech, and then really late in the year to Syracuse is kind of the sort of was the nail in the coffin. That's the loss that kept Miami out of the ACC championship game, thus keeping them out of the playoffs, and is why they're still on this weird back list and haven't managed to find their way off of it yet. We'll see what they can do. They bring in another transfer this year, this time Carson Beck from Georgia, rehabbing from an elbow injury. But when you look at these list of teams here, I think Miami is the closest to actually being back, actually winning maybe the ACC or making and winning a playoff game. Again, this isn't a prediction that Miami or any of these teams is necessarily going to do any of those things. It's just of the 6 teams we're talking about here on the We're Back list, I feel like Miami is the closest right now to actually achieving that goal. Then there's some movement. Now, I had Miami and Tennessee tied back in February. Obviously, a lot has happened since then. Nico, I'm not going to rehash that story. We all know what happened. He left. He's now at UCLA. They brought in a group of 5 quarterbacks, so they lost all of their wide receivers from last year. So brand new wide receivers, brand new quarterback. They brought in Joey Aguilar, a group of 5 quarterback. They've got 2 other quarterbacks on the roster who were highly recruited out of high school but don't have a ton of experience. They lost their best defensive player from last year. They just lost a lot. And Tennessee is not a team that is proven that they can be a 9, 10-plus win team season over season over season over season, like some of the other teams that you see like in the top 5 or top 10 of top 25 rankings, like your Texas, Ohio State, Georgia, whatever teams you want to name. So until Tennessee becomes more consistent in doing that, it's hard to trust that they can replicate what they did last year, because let's not forget they were very close to coming off of this list last year. Tennessee was. They were 10-2, 10-3 after a playoff loss to Ohio State. So while they didn't win their conference, they did get in the playoffs, but they failed to win a playoff game, which is why they're still on this list. Remember, you have to either win your conference, win a playoff game, or win the national championship. So I decided to move A&M up to number 2. Now, they were 7-5 last year, 8-5 after a bowl win, but that was with a first-year head coach in Mike Elko. Compare that with Florida, who is throwing parades and building statues because Billy Napier had the same record, 8-5, in his 3rd year, and that was his best year yet, in year 3. I don't know if anyone's told you, but Billy Napier doesn't know what he's doing, and it turns out that Mike Elko might. In fact, Texas A&M was 1 game away from playing for the SEC championship game last season. Had they beaten Texas in the last week of the regular season, they would have been in the SEC championship game with a chance to win the SEC, which of course would have removed them from a list like this. That didn't happen, though, so we'll see what they can do in year 2. But I think it's fair to have them right now at number 2 behind Miami in terms of closest to potentially getting off the We're Back list. And then I've actually got Florida at 3. 8-5 last year, Lagway's back, and if he can stay healthy and cut down on the turnovers, I think Florida could have a season similar to what they had last year, maybe even a game better, 8-4, something like that. I don't see Florida winning the SEC or winning any playoff games or national championships, so I don't think Florida is getting off of the We're Back list this year, but it is possible. I mean, look, here's the reality with teams improving. The worse you are, the easier it is to improve. Right? You take Florida State as an example. They went 2-10 last year. Okay, so if they go 5-7 this year, is that something to be excited about? This is Florida State. 5-7 is terrible. Well, then you go, well, but they only won 2 games last year. They improved by 3 games. That's sort of the mind trick Florida has been playing with themselves. The Florida fans have been playing with themselves under Billy Napier. 7-5 at the University of Florida in any year is absolutely terrible. Considering that it occurred in the head coach's 3rd year there, is inexcusable. Yet they find themselves in a situation where they're celebrating it and bragging about it because the 2 previous years under the same head coach, Billy Napier, were even worse. They're actually absolutely horrible. They had losing records. So I've got Florida 3rd on the list. They were 8-5 last year. They've got a brutal schedule again this season. We'll see what they can do. They come in at number 3. Tennessee, of course, falls here to number 4. Had them tied for 1st in February, but again, the loss of Nico and the failure to replace him with a proven quarterback, combined with the fact that they lost most of their offense when Dylan Sampson went off to the NFL, and most of their returning receivers to either the NFL graduation or the transfer portal, lost a lot on defense, and their inability to prove to me that year over year they can be a consistently good team. I've lost some faith in Tennessee. Now, I do not think that Tennessee is about to go back to like the Butch Jones days where they were busy going 4-8 or 0-8 in the SEC and winning 5-6 games a year. I don't think that's going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Tennessee gets to 8 or even 9 wins. But again, in order to get off of this list, they would have to either win the SEC, which I don't see happening, or make the playoffs and win a playoff game. And I don't even like Tennessee's chances to make the playoffs this season. So that would eliminate any possibility of winning a playoff game. Now, last year, I picked Tennessee to make the playoffs last year. So this isn't just a hate on Tennessee thing. I picked Tennessee to go 10-2 and make the playoffs last year. They went 10-2 and made the playoffs. It seems like they're poised to take a step backwards. So right now I've got them 4th on the We're Back list behind Miami, Texas A&M, Florida at 3, and Tennessee at 4. And then for 5 and 6, Auburn and Nebraska. These two teams are miles away, and there is a 0% possibility either of these teams is getting off this list this season. If I had to rank these I guess I'd have Nebraska a little ahead of Auburn. Matt Rule seems to be a little further ahead at Nebraska than where Hugh Freeze is at Auburn. And Matt Rule at Nebraska has a returning quarterback in Dylan Raiola, who showed some flashes last year of sort of what people thought maybe he could be. That was a true freshman last year, so you would expect him to play better this season. Matt Rule has a history of turning programs around in years 2 and 3, so we'll see what he can do. In the Big Ten, it's going to be a tough schedule. I don't think they're winning the Big Ten or making the playoffs. But I would probably have them a little bit ahead of Auburn. The thing with Auburn and Hugh Freeze, the guy needs a quarterback bad. They've recruited well, and they've got some talented players on both sides of the ball. But Hugh Freeze's system, offensive system and philosophy is so quarterback dependent. You've got to have somebody that can run that offense at a high level. You look at last year, massive turnover problem. Quarterbacks couldn't hang on to the ball. It was sort of a quarterback hokey pokey situation there. They played multiple QBs. None of them worked. They end up going into the portal to get a quarterback. Now, they got a high rated quarterback in terms of high school recruiting. He spent 1 year at Oklahoma, Jackson Arnold. The concern is, if there was one team in the SEC that was more turnover prone than Auburn last year at the quarterback position, it's probably Oklahoma. I mean, Jackson Arnold got himself benched 2, 3, 4 times last year. He was an absolute turnover machine. And considering that was Auburn's primary problem last year, it's a little bit of a head scratcher as to why Hugh Freeze chose Jackson Arnold to bring in to basically try to save his job. I don't think the Auburn fans and alumni are going to sit around and watch somebody like Hugh Freeze have multiple losing seasons in a row. Auburn might be down, but they ain't down as bad as Florida. They're not willing to put up with the same shitty teams over and over and over again like they are in Gainesville. If Hugh Freeze doesn't find a way to win probably 7 or 8 games this year, I guess if they went 6-6, but one of the wins was against Bama, they would keep him. But it seems to me like Hugh Freeze is on pretty thin ice, and it's a huge roll of the dice to bring in Jackson Arnold to fix a turnover problem. So we'll see how that works out. But there it is. That's the updated We're Back list for May 2025. I'll do another one in August heading into the start of the season in case there's been any changes or anything like that. But just to recap, Miami at number 1, they're the closest to being back, in my opinion. I would then have Texas A&M at 2, Florida at 3, and Tennessee at 4. And then after that, if you wanted to do like others receiving votes or whatever it is, I guess I would have Auburn slightly behind Nebraska. So I guess Nebraska 5, Auburn 6. Again, to get off the We're Back list, these teams would need to either win their conference or win a playoff game or win a national title. Those are the 3 ways to get off the list. None of these teams have done any of that in the last 10 years. You can't find a conference championship, a playoff win, or a national title anywhere in the last 10 years amongst any of these teams. In the case of Miami, they haven't won a conference in over 20 years. In the case of Florida, they haven't won a conference in 17 years. In the case of Tennessee, they haven't won a conference in 27 years. In the case of Auburn, they haven't won a conference in 12 years. And in the case of Nebraska, I don't even know how far I would have to go back. They've been in a death spiral for the better part of a decade. But anyway, that's it. The We're Back list for May 2025. Hit the thumbs up. Have a good morning.